All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the third annual Out and Equal LGBTQI plus India Forum and our first ever virtual India Forum. My name is CV Viverito. I am the Associate Director of Global Initiatives at Out and Equal. I identify as trans, non-binary, so my pronouns are they and them. Actually, the first ever Out and Equal India Forum in 2018 was my very first trip that I took with Out and Equal when I started. And it was that was very special to me. It was an incredible experience. And over the past few years, I have gotten to know so many of you and learn about the incredible initiatives that you're implementing in your workplaces. And so, although it's been a difficult year, I would have really loved so much to be with all of you in Bangalore. And it would also be morning for me instead of the middle of the night. But it is such a pleasure, truly, to still be able to connect here virtually. It really means a lot to me. It means a lot to us here at Out and Equal and to our partners, Pride Circle and Interweave. Connection is really so important right now. And the reason that we're doing this is to stay connected and to keep these conversations going, and of course to have a little bit of fun. So I want to thank you so much for making the time in your schedules this morning to join us. It's also a pleasure to have here with us today Out and Equal's CEO, Erin Uritis, who is so passionate about the global work that we do and is a huge driving force behind the success of our global partnerships and our global initiatives. And I would love to welcome her to say a few words and kick us off at our 2020 India Forum. Erin.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for CV for the leadership of our global programs. Because of you, we continue to grow our impact from China to Brazil and right here to India. Welcome to all of you. I am Erin Uritis, as CV said. My pronouns are she and her. I am really thrilled that we're able to continue our vital work here and hold the India Forum again this year in India. I miss India. I don't know how many of you know my personal story, but I lived in Abu Dhabi for 9 years before taking this job. And I was with International School Services and worked a bit in Chennai. So it has been a while, but I really hope to make it back there and to see you next time when we're all together in person. This forum is indeed a rare opportunity. It has been a tough year. I don't need to tell you that in so many ways. And yet we are all somehow getting through it. We are tapping into our resilience and we drive to look ahead. We are creating more inclusive workplaces for the future. We are telling our stories and we are connecting with each other in important forums like this. We know that the future of workplace inclusion depends on our ability to create and sustain true cultures of belonging. Belonging is more than a feeling. A workplace in which everyone belongs is one in which no one's talent, creativity, or drive are lost to the closet. It is a strategy, in fact, for more innovative and stronger businesses. When we can bring our full selves to work, to not hide what makes us who we are, we bring more to our organizations. And I'm not talking only about LGBTQ identities, but working mothers, people with disabilities, and many, many more. Our identities give us unique perspectives on everything from workplace problem solving to untapped markets. Creating a culture of belonging begins with developing a comfort in our own sharing and listening to each other. So I encourage you to treat today as a chance to forge new friendships, to learn from each other, and move past assumptions into new understandings. The pandemic has forced us all to be more open about our fears and anxieties, about our mental health, and the need to belong. That's why I am so proud of our programming today. We will cover all of this and more. And today we will build up our strength to build an even stronger movement for inclusion in 2021. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoy this time together today. I know we certainly will. And with that, I'd like to introduce two amazing people who have been incredible partners in organizing this event and incredibly valuable to the success of our entire programming in India. Ram Sinha of Pride Circle and Nimi Manan of Interweave Consulting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Erin, for the kind words, and it's a delight to partner with Out and Equal. I am Ram. I'm co-founder of Pride Circle. My pronouns are he, him. Srini and I always say that Pride Circle team feels like family because we have worked together, and we are really honored to partner with the third summit and the first virtual forum in India. And uh, and the other things that we've done, which is around the report. We're going to talk about that in the panel later around mental health. And we're really delighted to have our Equal team partner with us for the 21-day Ally Challenge, which was another fabulous initiative. Pride Circle is India's premier diversity inclusion consultancy and foundation, where we help organizations foster LGBT plus inclusion. It is imperative that organizations take affirmative action for inclusion. We really believe in the power of small steps taken by multiple people leads to sustainable change. And that is the way forward where we can really create a space where everyone feel they belong and they can bring the whole self to work and can focus on what they're really good at rather than trying to hide their identity, who they are. And it's an absolute waste of resources, right? At Pride Circle, from an organization perspective, we have a series of programs around sensitization, policy audits, and some of the flagship programs which you would be aware of around is RISE, which stands for Reimagining Inclusion for Social Equity, India's first ever LGBT plus job fair, conference, and marketplace. With the holistic offering around skill building, because we really believe in investing in building our community in terms of better employability and more inclusive organizations. The last month of September and October, we spent conducting 35 plus workshops with our brilliant learning partners from various organizations, talking about topics around AI, ML, IoT, blockchain, future of work in healthcare, legal, building fantastic resumes to LinkedIn profiles, how to be really a go-getter and grab the next opportunity available. The month of November, we spent doing Pride Hackathon, which was a month-long hackathon. Around 10 organizations submitted problem statements, and as an individual, people could submit their solutions to that. It's an opportunity for individuals, irrespective of the educational background or work experiences, get an opportunity to provide a solution to a problem statement and get opportunities for a job. We always keep looking at how do we really make impactful programs which are sustainable and is a win-win for all stakeholders involved. We are very proud to have just yesterday launched the results of India Workplace Equality Index, which was in partnership with Stonewall and KSF. This is the first ever comprehensive benchmark for organizations to measure their progress for LGBT plus inclusion in India. Metrics and measuring where we're going, getting a sense of where we stand today and how do we take the next step forward in which direction is very important for D&I initiatives because realizing what other organizations are doing and how we are doing comparatively really helps organizations to collectively push the bar. It's a little friendly competition, but at the end, the idea is how do we collectively move across barriers of organizations, of industries, and come together to really make a difference to the society we work in. And we're really honored to have 65 organizations sign up and do go check out whether your organization featured in the gold, silver, or bronze band of Ivy Top Employers 2020. The other aspect about leveraging the power of allyship, and I think every individual has the opportunity and the ability to make a difference through small actions. And we really find passionate allies, and sometimes the translation of passion to action is difficult because they really are supportive, but they don't know really how to convert that passion into meaningful action. And that's how we built the 21-day Ally Challenge. In a world which was under lockdown because of the pandemic, it was great to have a partner like Out and Equal to mobilize 12,750 people from 108 organizations in 58 countries to participate in the global gamification of allyship. It was the 21-day Ally Challenge. It was a series of mini challenges which would take 5 minutes in a day, but every single day for the next period 21 days, like reading a coming out story, watching a short film, reading about the laws of the country, translating from a space of knowledge and awareness to a space of affirmative action to inclusion. And the simplest example of that would be, let's say tomorrow I want to order a cake and I know of an LGBT owned bakery. That small difference of purchase by many people is a true meaningful way of making an impact and inclusion sustainable. Um, I'm really honored to be a part of Out and Equal India Forum. Thank you for having me, and we look forward to this brilliant conversation today. Thank you. Over to you, Nirmala.
Thank you, Ram, and absolutely delighted to be sharing the screen with so many wonderful people. Um, it's no secret that inclusion is still unfinished business, and the LGBT plus inclusion even more so. Interweave is therefore very proud to partner with Out and Equal on this phenomenal work of ensuring LGBT rights. It's a partnership that began about 3 years ago. And the fact that we are doing an event like this at a time, like the pandemic, just tells us that progress on inclusion work cannot stop, not even for a pandemic. And thank you also, Out and Equal, for the great work that you've done during this period around the mental health and well-being. I think the resources that you put out there that are available for all organizations to use is phenomenal. Thank you for that work. As we all know, diverse people are always picked on and pushed around for just being different. And it's conversations like this that actually foster awareness and sensitivity. And the unique value that Out and Equal brings to our participants in India is the international flavor. We get to know what's going on in the rest of the world, not just in the LGBT space, but also for the D&I agenda in general for all of us. So thank you for doing that. I also take this opportunity to congratulate and to recognize Out and Equal for their ongoing support and work in this space, recognizing your work with great gratitude. The world needs solidarity now more than ever. And, and it is, Interweave's privilege and pride to reaffirm its support and commitment to ensuring that we build a world where we leave no one behind, that no one is excluded simply because of their gender identity, expression, or sexual orientation. We all need to bring our energies, time, and resources together to move this forward and to build a better world. Do support the cause and have a great conference. Absolutely delighted to be here with all of you. Thank you. Over to you, Dina.
Wow, thank you so much, Nimi. Thank you, Ram, and to my incredible colleagues, CV and our CEO, Erin Uritis. I am absolutely thrilled to be here. Very briefly, I'm Dina Fidas. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the Chief Program and Partnerships Officer here at Out and Equal. I have been doing global LGBTQ workplace inclusion for about 13 years and have a very special place in my heart for the work that's been happening in India. I actually got to be part of the very first LGBTQ corporate conference in Hyderabad several years ago. And, we are in a year 2020 of talking a lot about the new normal. And to me, the new normal in India right now, and increasingly globally, is one in which corporates are asking, what else can we do? We are not just going to check the box. We are not just going to rest on any one score. And I too love the indices and used to oversee the Corporate Equality Index. And I'm so thrilled that Ram and Stonewall have launched a similar benchmarking tool in India. At the same time, none of us have rested when it comes to the culture work that's needed. And I think during a pandemic, more than at any other time, our sense of belonging, our ability to connect, to feel valued by our colleagues, and to break down any barriers that perhaps previously existed to say, I'm scared, I'm anxious, I've lost someone to COVID. That's why this work is so important. You know, we shore our strength for the times that are hardest, not the times that are easiest. And so in just one moment, I'm going to welcome our panelists. But I also want to say something else about our parallel tracks from the United States to India. This coming year is the 25th anniversary of Out and Equal Workplace Advocates. Something that stands out in my mind is that we only in the United States struck down what would be comparable to Section 377 back in 2003. And so if you're doing the quick math, you know then that Out and Equal existed for nearly a decade before people in the United States could no longer be penalized for having same-sex adult relationships. And, you know, so much of our work, it's about the long view. It's about, as Erin said, this long view in the sense that the business community wields a lot of power and also a lot of ability to not wait for courts or lawmakers to do what's in their best interest, which is to promote, foster diverse and inclusive workplaces. And so we are so much more as a global community and a global movement than any one law will say about us. But we also know that laws open doors. And so as we are rounding out almost 2 years, or a little more than 2 years since Section 377 was struck down, the new normal is simply to keep moving forward. Keep moving forward on trans and non-binary inclusion, keep moving forward on visibility, and to keep moving forward on having the hard conversations, you know, looking and reflecting on why is it that while we have the structures in place, we still don't have people who are comfortable bringing their full authentic selves to the workplace. So with all of that in mind, I'm absolutely honored and thrilled to welcome 4 leaders with combined expertise across industries and many other perspectives. And so may I ask our colleagues to go off, to turn on their cameras and go off mute. Keti, Melanie, Sindhu, and Amit, welcome. I'm going to ask each of you to please introduce yourselves to our audience as the numbers keep climbing. I'm sure people are grabbing their tea, their coffee, and I think we'll start, please, with you, Sindhu. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Dina, and good morning to everybody. Good evening, good afternoon for all of you joining in from different parts of the world. Thank you for having me here, and huge appreciation to everyone at Out and Equal who are so passionate about running this initiative and to also spread so much awareness about a topic that still needs a lot more support. Myself, Sindhu Gangadharan, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the SVP and Managing Director of SAP Labs here in India, responsible for all our locations here and mainly our R&D investments that happen out of Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Gurgaon. So as an organization, I'm extremely proud that at SAP, deep down, we strongly believe that each and every one of our employees should be able to bring their true, authentic selves to work. And we've always embraced and encouraged different perspectives, and we always believed that our innovation spirit can only thrive and can truly only accelerate when people from different cultures, from different races, from different ethnic backgrounds, genders, sexual orientation can absolutely work together and bring their true self, like I said, to the workplace. Now, as many of you already know, SAP is very committed to advocacy on behalf of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, as well as the intersexual community. And our own Pride at SAP network, I'm very proud to say, it has grown to include over 8,000 members. And if you just look at it, that's just under 10% of our workforce. So we also allocate a dedicated budget to the network's work, and so that we help people to participate in Pride events that happen across the world. So for years, and we talked about indices and all that before, but I'm also proud to say that SAP has also been a leader in the Corporate Equality Index, which, as all of you know, is a benchmark survey published by the Human Rights Campaign. And I think it's also important to keep measuring ourselves, but at the same time building that culture that we are all very proud of at SAP. So very honored to be here, Dina, and looking forward to a great conversation today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And good morning to you, Ketty. Welcome.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me over here. Like you all have been covering that right now in India, it is all about moving forward, taking the next step, focusing on the visibility and all of that. So at UBS, I have a similar kind of story. I am Director UBS. My pronouns are he and him, and I have been in the IT industry for close to 20 years. I take care of production support areas in my day job. And I am very enthusiastic about the movement that is happening within the industry, not only within my firm, but across, because it allows us to exchange a lot of ideas, and it allows us to, support each other in the right way to take more and more talent from the community into the industry.
Thank you so much, Ketty. And good morning, Melanie. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie, and I identify as cisgender female, queer on the LGBTQ spectrum. My pronouns are she and her. I lead the customer experience analytics teams for Citrix support services. I started the Pride ERG in our Bangalore offices about 2 years ago when I realized there were a few organizations, and this is pre Section 377, that had already started their Pride inclusion journeys. However, I wasn't seeing anything, very significant in my company in India. Of course, a lot from the global front, but little on the local front. So when I approached my HR leadership, they mentioned that I was actually the first person that had ever asked for anything like this. But now that I had, they were actually keen to get started on that. And I think that's where my journey on, trying to build a more inclusive workspace kind of started. For me, I feel the culmination of that, and it's a little crazy to think that that was just 2 years ago. But for me, the culmination of that was yesterday, when Citrix was announced as one of the gold standard employers for LGBTQ people. So, and that's in the IWEI assessment. So, in a short span of time, I think it's just an indication of how ready perhaps we are to get on this journey. And I think that's probably true of a lot of organizations out there.
Thank you so much. And good morning, although I believe it's an early good evening to you, Amit.
It's actually early. It's an earlier morning to
earlier
me.
morning, pardon me.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Amit Matani. I'm a entrepreneur and business owner in multiple fields, including apparel manufacturing company and trading company, which is based out of Hong Kong, but employs multiple people in India, Bangladesh, and Jordan here in the Middle East. I'm also a hotelier based out of Chennai, and a proud member of the LGBTQ community, identifying as gay. And I think for me, personally and professionally, my journey started very much at the 377 turning point, where I joined the voices that were speaking against 377 in its current form during the Supreme Court deliberations. People were looking for voices from business leadership in Chennai, and I threw my hat in the ring to be one of them. It's been quite a changing moment personally, and also one of the things that I kind of want to stress on has been the importance of leadership in any field to come out and share their identity, because it does provide role models for a lot of youth to look up to. One of the things we've talked about during our pre-session was the significance of that, and how 377 is kind of the reading down of 377 has freed a lot of us to do that, but many haven't taken the opportunity. We work as throughout all our organizations. We have been working with Pride Circle and the Workplace Equality Index to begin the journey of creating workplaces. And I think one of the other things that I wanted to stress on is our important work with the straight community to create as many allies as possible in this journey, because I think that's really where it all begins, is awareness and training and communication. So looking forward to a wonderful discussion today.
Thank you so much. And I think you've just actually beautifully teed up some of our key topics here. So I appreciate that you opened with some of your own journey, and I wonder if anybody else wants to open with a little bit more dimension around what has LGBTQ workplace inclusion meant for you personally. Some of you have been drivers for change. I wonder, as you think over the course of your career, would your career have gone differently had there been greater inclusion efforts, say 5 or 10 years ago? So I'm wondering, Keti, you had told some really interesting stories about earlier in your career, what it meant to drive this. Can you reflect a little bit more on that?
Sure. So, first of all, I come from a very conservative place, and the concept of being different was difficult for everybody. And I knew I was different, but I did not have a definition of how I was different. So, my growing up days were all confused and struggling and trying to fit in as much as possible. As far as a career is concerned, in India, in my early career, I had to go as a female. I couldn't identify as a trans person. Reason being, the social makeup of the people around you was not at all in a zone where they could accept. So early on in my career, I love my career path and I love what I do. But yes, if I have to look back, probably I would have been a little more comfortable and faster in my career had it been my authentic self always. So I could live authentic once I was out of India. I was in London and then I was in US, and that's the time when I learned so much around acceptance, around my own self, the way I could prep and then influence others. And then when I came back to India, it was a different place altogether. A lot of things had changed. People were progressive. The millennials were out there and they were very supportive. It was now there was a clear divide between the I would say generations. There was one generation that needed to be equitized with the new changes and acceptance rules, and they had to be educated around pronouns, around inclusion, around visibility, around being an ally, all of that. And then there was this millennials who were completely warm-hearted and open to accepting everything. So coming back to India, it was very fascinating. It was very progressive, and I've been part of a lot of LGBTQ chapters within the organization that I work with. And it's very informative to hear certain questions that come out. So all in all, what I would say is, if we were always inclusive, it would have certainly been different. But I'm happy that we are getting there.
Thank you so much, Keti. And I have to smile a bit too, because in so many DEI conversations, corporate conversations, millennials get a bad rap. Oh, they're entitled. Oh, they change jobs every few years. So it's nice to begin with some positive remarks about how the millennials are changing the landscape. So thank you. Melanie Armit, would you like to comment a little bit more about what this has meant for your personal and professional journey?
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. So I think for me, being closeted for such a long time, I don't upfront, when I think about it, it instantly doesn't feel like I've had a negative impact on it. But where I think it definitely has had an impact is in the relationships that one builds at work. No matter how much one would like to say, hey, my work is going to speak for itself, the relationships that you build with your colleagues and with your peers is something that I think in some way or the other influences the kind of work that you do, you know, in every way, and also your ability to influence. And therefore, to have constantly hiding one or rather large aspect of myself, I think it was very obvious to a lot of people that there were certain aspects of myself that I was not truly sharing with them. And therefore, I think I could have come across as being very inauthentic. And, you know, I think people pick up on that. And I do believe that that really impacted my ability to build some strong relations at work. So for me, that's where I think on the negative side, it has impacted my career. Yeah.
Thank you, Mani. Amit?
Yep, and I think for me personally, one of the things was as a young startup business leader, one of the biggest struggles or challenges was having a few people that I was out to in my core inner circle that I was also working with, and then the others that I wasn't. And it was just sort of this constant balancing act of being partially yourself, partially not. And personally, it was very much a driver to prove a point. So in a way, it almost became sort of, and not in a positive way, in a very negative way. It became this need to be better than, because you felt that you were lacking in something, and therefore had to equalize or offset or overcompensate. And it's a very exhausting way to work. I know a lot of people who get burnt out because of that. I came personally pretty close to getting burnt out and had a bit of a career change in my early 30s. Because of that, because of overworking. And I think one of the most important things of what we're doing, and one of the biggest challenges that someone in a leadership position faces is, will I be viewed differently? Am I going to not be taken as seriously? And we have that on multiple points culturally in a country like India, whether it is gender, whether it is sexual orientation and identity, whether it is age. We're quite an ageist society even. We almost sort of equate experience with talent and ability. And so I think one of the most important things is in creating these environments where people can be their authentic selves, and encouraging people to come out and taking certain steps to make them as comfortable as we can at work. We're basically setting both our businesses and these individuals up for success. If you want to look at it from a very selfish and sort of corporate perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you know, one person's selfish is another's, you know, business case. So we'll take it. We're used to translating the language of equality into the business case. You've each touched on so many important themes that I know we're going to continue to unpack today and also flesh out, which is number one, we cannot deny the role of social connectivity on the job. You know, my ability to have rapport with somebody will, in a cumulative way, be my ability to seek out a mentor, to learn about new opportunities, to be encouraged to overcome my own doubts, and take a big step in a career. And, you know, we in the LGBTQ plus community are not the only ones who have identified this. Certainly women, people of varied abilities, people across ethnicities who have been counted out in some way, see that it's not just the meritocracy, it's not just how you do your job, it's how you relate to other people. And this can present a significant barrier and one that has business consequences. And it's good, I think, to name that, yes, this is a human issue, a heart issue, it's also a business issue. Sindhu, I'd love to turn to you because, you know, you had shared that you've been with SAP for about 20 years.
Mhm.
This is a multinational company with, as you mentioned, an extraordinary record on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and one that predates the striking down of Section 377. And I just want to shift to this theme for just a few minutes. What have you observed, you know, in your time there, the concrete changes that have occurred? Has it really freed up people's ability to talk about LGBT plus inclusion at work?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dina. And yes, revoking Section 377 on September 6, 2018 definitely was the beginning of a new era. There's no doubt about it, particularly for the LGBTQ community in India. And I think that was also a very clear endorsement of our evolution as a society into a more inclusive society. But at the same time, I think that was a milestone, but the work that still needs to happen, and I think we heard it all the way from Amit, from Ketty, from Melanie. Still, there's so much to be done, right? And this is why, as an organization, and if I just reflect on, and this is why when I started off, I just kind of irrespective of all these changes that happen, and you also said, right, laws are being passed, but the work needs to happen. And this is also why at Labs India, we've brought in a lot of initiatives to make our workplace truly inclusive for everybody in the community, right? And it's important that we continue to do that irrespective of the laws being passed. And because finally it's about the culture that you build, and how do you build that culture over a period of time? How do you sustain that culture over a period of time? And this is also why we launched things like the sensitization program, which really helps people come together in small groups, and gives them that comfort zone to talk about things that and they can open up, and really engaging them in an open conversation around the topic. And we've been doing that across the organization, because as a large organization like SAP, we are 13,000 strong here in India. We believe that we can be the change, not just for us as an organization, but for the societies that we are part of right here in India. So this is also why we included aspects like the gender affirmation surgery as part of our insurance policy. It has to go down to that level of detail. Or even aspects like provision family leave for same-sex partners, things which did not exist. We also launched an anonymous portal to support our colleagues in the LGBTQIA plus community who are not yet out, right, despite all the changes, but really need the support. Look at role models who've gone there, done that, and really give them that kind of support and guidance. Because as an organization, we truly believe that our colleagues need to bring their authentic selves to work. I think we heard it earlier on from Melanie as well, right? People sense that when you're not able to kind of bring that your everything to your workplace. And so we're truly passionate about that, and we want to embrace and also encourage the different perspectives that people bring. And like I said earlier on, right, because it's only when we are able to do that across and beyond, and also within the ecosystem, that innovation can really thrive. Startups from different perspectives can come in and help accelerate people, like I said, across cultures, across races, across ethnicities, across sexual orientations, and so on. And also just coming back to the Pride Circle event, I mentioned that earlier on, right? We just recently, I mean, this because of COVID, we couldn't do it physically on our campus, but it was so beautiful where we still had really amazing people coming into corporate meet, really sharing their personal stories. And I think we need to do a lot more of that. I still remember those amazing speakers we had a few months back, and so many of our employees after that, right, coming back and writing and just expressing what it meant for them personally. And for me, I think we need to do even more of that, and across our organizations, and over a period of time increase that awareness. And I think as corporates like us, we have a very strong role to play in the kind of change that we want to drive in our societies.
Thank you so much. Such excellent points. And I think I mean, I'm curious, 377 catalyzed some change in your life and in your career. I'm wondering would you say that in this post 377 era that there is a new level of obligation across corporates, a new level of obligation to provide more inclusive workplaces, or do you think that one doesn't necessarily speak to the other?
I think more than obligation, to be honest with you, 377 opened the doors. So for many global corporates, including Hyatt, for example, I use them as an example as a company that I work with that manages my property out of India. They run a business in multiple countries, ranging from countries where uh, being LGBTQ has penalties as extreme as the death penalty, going to participating in World Pride front and center in New York, which happened last year to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. So, and this is not just, using them as an example, but there are many such corporates that are operating in various different environments that have to be sensitive to local laws more than anything else. There is the intent, the desire to provide support, to provide inclusion at the workplace environment. But in some cases, laws just make it difficult. Now, in the case of 377, it was a bit of a unique law in that it didn't criminalize being part of the LGBTQ community, it criminalized the act. So, but many corporates weren't aware of this. They didn't understand the nuance and the subtleties of the difference. So the existence of such a law in terms of perception was being gay is illegal. So therefore, as much as we want to support this, we can't. And I think the reading down of 377 truly opened the door to something that was already desired and intended, and many corporates were already working on pre 377. But it no longer made it a risk. And I think therefore it really capitalized on what was already happening globally for both Indian businesses and international businesses operating in India, to now be able to take that step forward. As far as obligation is concerned, I truly believe that it is, apart from the business case for it, it is a very much a human, the human case trumps anything, and it's one of the most significant drivers where you do want to create environments of non-discrimination across the board. So
thank you so much. And you hit the nail on the head, at least even in my experience, the number of conversations I had with multinationals, with, very sophisticated global HR leads that quote unquote, being gay in India, it's illegal. No, it's not. there are behaviors that are legal. And without getting too vulgar so early in the morning, I'll just say the real problem would be if anyone is engaging in those behaviors at work, straight or gay. So the issue had to do with something completely different. But I think you're absolutely right. And it is critical that we continue to unpack that. I also think it's critical to unpack that, of course, 377 was about essentially an extension of sexual orientation. But let's also focus where we are in terms of queer, non-binary, trans visibility and meaningful conversation there. And I also see that we are starting to get some questions coming up in here. And so I'm going to try to weave some of the questions into the themes I know we wanted to cover. But I'm wondering if Melanie or Ketty, if you would like to speak a little bit about your observations as to where we are right now on the trans and non-binary conversations within workplaces and where we need to go.
Sure. So where we are right now, we are at the education state uh, where we take up forums and discussions with senior leadership, with our peers, and we educate them around how to be a good ally, how to respect their pronouns, how to how to address and acknowledge the unconscious biases that people have. So, there are certain things that we just do and we don't know whether they are right or wrong. We do it because we are doing it out of our autonomic system. So, we are at the stage where now we are becoming friendlier and healthier when we point out these kind of unconscious biases. People are opening up to accepting the fact that, okay, I understand how this is a bias and I will work on it myself. So that positivity has started coming in, which is encouraging the inclusivity within the work environment. Uh, where do we want to go? I would love to see that this entire acceptance area becomes normalized, that I don't have to tell somebody that why is my pronoun different and why should it be respected that way. I should not have to introduce myself specially. And when I walk into a room, everybody knows how to work with me, how to deal with people like me, and what are the sensitive areas that they should take care of. So that is the normalized form where nothing is special. Like if you speak about the straight folks, when they come into the office and when they are talking about their vacations or family or something of that sort, we take it very cordially. There is no question mark in our eyes, in our body language, but the same question mark still exists on the rest of the world. So I would, that is where I want to go. There should not be any question mark.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Melanie, did you want to also comment?
Yeah, I just want to add to what Ketty's mentioned, because I think it's very similar and where I'd like to see the future be, but also in steps on how to get there. Because one of the things which I've realized is you have two sets of people. One who believe that who don't understand why it is that we need to acknowledge and accept, and why should this even be mentioned in the workspace. We still have a large group of people that think that way. And you have another set of people who really want to do something, but they have no idea how and what to do. They just know that they need to. And at a human level, right, that it is the right thing to do, like Amit mentioned.
Okay.
So on the first set of people, one of the things which I've realized that really helps is for them it's an alien concept because they don't identify it themselves. They've not experienced it because people are so closeted still, right? And it's just a lack of exposure. And while education on one front, there's another aspect which I've forgotten. I've forgotten who mentioned it, but the ability to bring out stories. Sindhu mentioned it, right? Listening to personal stories of people's journeys, struggles, what they go through, I think that's what eventually brings empathy, which eventually changes society. So, I know that we want to get there, but there are steps and levels to get to that. And I think the first one is, yes, education, but exposure to the human aspect, because that's something everybody relates to in one way or the other. And that's, when I realized that there's the problem and that's what the problem is when I realized maybe I need to change something about myself or become a little bit more aware of what's going on out there. And I think especially like you're saying with the trans and the non-binary, in India, I think, for us, we're starting to introduce the concept of, gay, lesbian, and slowly getting a little bit more acceptance on the bi and, on trans, and, to then bring in slowly aspects of non-binary and other aspects as well. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Thank you so much, Melanie. And it feels like we're just getting warmed up. We have a little less than 10 minutes left. And so I want to briefly touch on, we're getting some terrific questions. One, someone has written in to say that they work for a nonprofit here in India, and we were not understanding why are we so focused on corporates. And I would say to you, welcome. Thank you for the work you do. It's true that most of our partnerships are across the business community, but we are very, very glad to extend the learnings across organizations. And To that end, I would love to hear from each of you 2 to 3 universals, universal tips for change. You know, a daily action that someone who is at whether they're at a mid-sized organization, a nonprofit, a major business, what are daily actions that anyone can take to foster a culture of belonging for the LGBTQ community?
Maybe I can start, Dina.
Thank you.
So I think first and foremost, right, irrespective of your title or level in an organization, I think it's important that everybody has that understanding and comes in with that culture that an organization is made up of individuals who are different, who are unique in their own ways, and needs to be respected in their own ways. I think that's first and foremost and fundamental to everything that we're talking about, I believe. And also, it's important to understand that the more diverse an organization is, and I continue to stress this, it's better for the organization's growth and the prosperity that we bring as well. And I truly believe that organizations must put in right at the beginning also, and I see that on the chat, there are questions on hiring processes. And I want to call out that, right, it starts right from there, a bias-free hiring process to select candidates based on their professional ability. And this, I think, is front and center when we're talking about any role that is being filled for any position across any department. And here I'd also am a strong proponent of using technology as well to make sure that, yes, we have the right intention, but still, right, I mean, as human beings, it's also important that we leverage our technologies that we take to market for really eliminating bias on scale. And this, I think, is something which where we can do a lot of things right from the beginning. And another thing from an employee perspective, and just also responding to some of the comments here, right, I think it's important that as an organization we don't tag people, right, and we don't kind of say, oh, this is our diversity hires or whatever be it, right, that's really not acceptable at all. And as a leader, I think we all of us have to set examples as allies. I think it's a responsibility that we have to take on. And policies, of course, and facilities have to be accommodative to all our employees. I mean, and to support all their diverse needs and preferences. I think these are some things that each and every one of us, irrespective of the size of our organizations that we represent, have to imbibe on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. And indeed, you know, I want to just briefly say that we got more questions than we could answer solely in this panel, but I think as we go around the table now, note that number one, over the course of today, we will have resources and tools for your own internal business case or organizational case for change. This concept of allyship, this is both a formal role that people play. It's also a daily role of support and culture change. And glancing again at some of these comments and questions, I think if you stay with us today, we will in fact be able to answer this. There's also, I just want to note a very concrete question about a practice known as self-identification, or the voluntary data collection of LGBTI persons in the workforce. And so if any of you want to incorporate these topics into your final remarks, that's great. If not, I just want to assure our attendees that we have a lot of concrete resources on it, as there are some tried and true best practices there. But if you like, Melanie, and I mean, I see that you're off mute. If you want to comment on some words of advice for our registrants as we wind down the opening plenary.
Melanie, I'll let you go first.
I was going to say the same thing, but sure. Just, you know, on what are some of the things that you mentioned that can support a culture of belonging for everybody? For me, I think one key aspect I'd like everyone to take away, especially for the allies out there, is don't underestimate the importance of visible allyship. That could be a button, a sticker, a virtual background in the world that we're in, something in your signature, a mention in a meeting, a conversation with a colleague or even a friend about a session that you attended, something that you've learned about the LGBT community. Like I said, I kept wondering as an employee, what's going on? Why is my company not doing anything? And there are a lot more people out there that are apprehensive. They want to make that step. In fact, one of the questions is how do I get my company to look at that without outing myself, right? So there are people out there, and for leaders, I'd say that it might feel a little I think it could be a little bit disappointing when you feel that why are there so few people coming out? But coming out itself is such a personal journey, and there's so many factors that influence that. So don't worry about that. But there are people in your organization that are looking for those small indications, to make them feel that. So even while they may not be out, just being able to understand that there is somebody out there that, and my company really does care and is doing so much to make this more inclusive is in itself very, very reassuring for your employees. So I think one key takeaway is visible allyship. And, empathy comes through, like I say, education and making yourself aware and listening to the stories. And there are a lot of resources out there. So make that little bit of effort. It does take a little bit of concentrated effort, but there are huge outcomes from that.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Amit?
I'm going to sort of echo and add to what a lot of Melanie has said, Dina, in order to answer your question about a few sort of key takeaways of what you can do. I think step one, and the most important step, is come out. I think it was Billie Jean King that said, come out wherever you are. It was either Billie Jean King or Harvey Milk. I get confused between who said that, but it is, the reality is, if anybody's out there that believes that in their organization, because no one is out, that you have no members of the LGBTQ community, you're living in complete and total denial. We are there, and we all know that, and we've all sort of gone through, and it does take those few brave souls to make those first steps, to start a chain reaction. As far as individuals are concerned, I think exactly what Melanie said. I echo that 1000%. Visible allyship. We're talking about visibility here. Number one, visible allyship. Subtle, small statements or comments about a TV show you saw, a character, anything that can, in a group environment, spark a dialogue and create a sense of, okay, this is one person that I know I can go to and actually maybe say, you know what, this is who I am and this is what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
And on a corporate level, for the larger organizations, of course, create the policies, create the places, create the environment which encourages coming out. Because it's not about diversity hires, it's not about finding the talent. The talent is already there. It's about giving people an opportunity to be their true authentic selves. And then from that, when you create that environment, you will attract more such talent. And I think that is the most important thing, is visibility. And there is an onus on members of the community to embrace their identity more publicly, to create change. I know it's a tough transition and journey, especially in a country like India, especially in a culture like India, where you might turn around and be worried that, is it going to get home? I'm not ready to be out at home. I don't want my parents to find out. But somewhere, somehow, individually, you have to take that bold step. And I think on allyship and on the corporate side, supporting someone when they take that step is your responsibility. So I would say that's the way it should go. And just one last thing I kind of wanted to say is, I know we're running short of time, but I think one of the most important things is, yes, we all crave what Ketty was talking about, which is that normal world, where it is your sexual identity, your gender identity is a non-issue. But in order to get there, first we have to go from the closeted world that we've been in, where everything's been hush hush, to the world where I think we're going into in India right now, where you are spotlighting it. And eventually you can start fading the lights out, because what happens is it no longer needs that spotlight. You just are who you are. You come to work, and you're viewed purely on your credentials, and your work starts truly speaking for itself at that point. But to address the people that say, why do we need to do this? I think that's exactly the reason, is because it has been suppressed and it has been hidden for so long that it needs to be normalized, and that normalization process takes time and effort.
Thank you so much, Amit. Absolutely beautiful. I wish I could enthusiastically applause as you were talking. Keti, with a final insight.
Completely in line with what all my three panelists have said. Just one thing, that we have been waiting for being acknowledged and everything for a long time. I believe that currently is the right time when we take the onus of showing up, standing up, speaking up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Keti. I truly, truly wish we could continue to talk, because I'm already energized hearing you and inspired. Thank you all. To our participants, excuse me, we do have breakout groups that are starting now. In terms of any other questions, I really appreciate the questions and comments that came into the chat box. Please stay then for the networking breakout lunch, where we can continue this dialogue. And I also want to say at a very personal, on a personal level, to each of our panelists and each of you that are attending today, you will have ripple effects into people's lives that you will perhaps never meet. There is someone who is 10 years from being a mom who eventually will have a trans child, and they're going to remember Keti's flag and the first time that that she heard a respectful, inclusive conversation about trans inclusion was at work. And that mom is going to take that back to her family. You know, I really believe that, yes, of course, we are here to strategize and to strengthen our organizations and our businesses. This is also life-changing and in some cases life-saving work. And so with my deepest gratitude, again, thank you all for the work that you do every single day, the boldness and integrity with which you move through the world. And we are very fortunate to start the day with you. So with that, I'll ask my colleagues if there is anything else on the logistics side. Just note in the chat box. We'll see everybody very soon. We have some really exciting sessions on mental health, on what belonging means, and trans and non-binary workplace experiences. So again, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.